This video is about how AI is impacting the venture capital industry, startups, and really the greater economy in general, but our focus here is venture capital. So AI was started it became popular with platforms such as ChatGPT and OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic's Claude, and others, but those are the main ones. Those platforms are not products exactly, they are platforms where you can build products. So the second generation of AI companies have created actual products. For example, 11 Labs uses their own AI, but in the beginning a lot of these companies were feeding off the infrastructure of ChatGPT and Claude and the big guys because they had the infrastructure, just as you would with anything like startups using Amazon or SpaceX that have the infrastructure. So 11 Labs makes voices, and now they're doing voices for music, and it's amazing, but it's specifically for AI voice because we all know that computer robotic sound. 11 Labs provides these deep, rich sounds and vocals, so you can use it for recordings, for video, for music, really for anything where you need someone speaking. You could use it for a website, you could use it for a film, there's no limit, but it's all about voices. Then there are these vibe coding platforms which have really transformed software, such as Replit, Lovable, Cursor, and there are others, but those are probably the most popular. And I've tested them all and have made some pretty interesting apps with them. But the point is that, like in the software cycle, there's been something in Wall Street they've called the SaaSpocalypse. That's the collapsing of the SaaS business model, where you pay $50 a month for Adobe and for this and that, because you can now take Replit and copy something like Zoom or Canva or any of these SaaS companies that are all software, and you can make your own version very quickly and use it for your own team. And as the founder of Stripe said, software is about to be like pizza. That means it's going to be consumed right for the customer right at the point of order. So you're going to say, okay, I want software that does XYZ, and then you pay. That's going to cost you $25. You wait 30 minutes, and then here's your software. And we're already kind of at that point that is possible to do that, but it's still very technical. For example, that you have to be pretty much a power user to use it, but that's going to change the whole software world. And really any application where you have heavy computing use, AI is going to increase efficiencies. And I want to talk about two things. First, the use of the term AI is widely inappropriate. What we have with ChatGPT and with Claude and with a lot of these groups is not AI. It's actually computing, or you could say machine intelligence. It's not really AI. Agentic AI is not really AI. It's not AGI. I mean, it's not an actual sentient thinking computer, like the computer that beat Garry Kasparov or other chess masters. Those are deep thinking AI. The AI with ChatGPT is really just a server-based agent algorithmic process. It's not intelligent per se. It just can do a lot of things, and it's useful. So that's first of all. Calling it AI is really like a marketing thing. There is AI out there. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying 90% of what we use is not AI. It's useful computers, useful software. And of course, we haven't really touched into hardware. The second point is that how AI is going to transform industry is positive for the worker. So what's happening now? People are getting fired and replaced by AI. But actually what's happening, those jobs are being consumed by AI, but new jobs are being created. So for example, take any company, take any business. You can't run a bank, for example, with one employee. You need to have someone that takes care about the finances. You need, you need thousands of people to run a bank. You need thousands of people to run most big organizations, and you certainly can't run a big company by yourself. So what's happening? People are getting fired because those jobs are becoming irrelevant. So things like data entry or certain internet-related jobs like SEO or article writing, or if you have people doing monotonous things, there's always got to be service behind the contract. So like if you take lawyers, for example, you can have AI help you write contracts, but the AI is never going to replace the lawyer because the lawyer knows what to put in the contract. So it's going to increase the value of people with skills. Now, the people who are getting fired, they're just going to need to get different jobs with different skill sets. And if I was a company, I would be hiring all those people who are getting fired and just repurpose them, because there's lots of gaps with what we call AI, and one of them is creativity, another one is common sense, and there are many others. But the point is, there's going to be a new generation of hiring of people with AI skills that please implement this for our company, for our firm. Teach us how we can build our own software that is delivered like pizza with our brand that works with our customers. So there's going to be a second generation of, now there's the firings, next is going to be the hirings. And blue collar jobs, plumbers, electricians, all that stuff, their hourly wage is going to double because AI can't work in the physical world. And I know Elon's making a bunch of robots, Optimus. But anyway, even if that happens, there's going to be lots of things that the robots cannot do. The robots might be able to pick lettuce in the fields, and they may be able to build a house, and perform surgery and certain things, but they're not going to be able to do everything. And they're never going to have, there's a certain niche of human creativity. And by creativity, I don't mean being an artist or a musician. I mean creativity in the flow of life. That means if you're in business or if you're a trader, like trading is another good example. You can have robots do the trading, but robots cannot trade autonomously. You need to program the robots. You need to tell the robots what the framework is and that you want to make money, and then you let them go. If you created a trading robot that was intelligent, it might not trade. It doesn't have the same incentive, the joy of life. And that's something that's going to be unique to humans, because AI can never have consciousness. AI can, let's say that it's possible that a computer can have feelings, just like people can have artificial feelings, but it can't be real feelings. AI can't really love you. It can pretend, but it doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have a heart. It doesn't feel like we feel, like humans, and it never will. And if you want to get into this argument like, well, we could put AI into a human, that's just something totally different. What we're talking about now, agentic AI, OpenAI, ChatGPT, none of this is going to come close to the human experience. So those are our advantages. So how is this impacting venture capital? It's going to change the way that companies evolve. In some ways they will be accelerated, but in some ways it will make them immediately collapse on their niche that they're doing, and not worry so much about the infrastructure. Small teams can move fast, achieve the goal, exit, move on to other projects. So it'll accelerate. It'll bring up a different set of challenges, but it'll also provide tools to solve those challenges. So it's going to be very positive and for the wider economy. But what's unique to venture capital that probably doesn't exist so much in the greater economy is the ability to adapt and evolve. Because venture capital is all about innovation and evolution. And if you take the example of IBM, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. So mostly Microsoft you could argue that Microsoft, Google, and Facebook all came from the venture capital community, even though Microsoft was more kind of corporate. I mean, they didn't do a lot of VC funding. They were kind of self-funded and more corporate. They're more like a private equity type. Remember the commercials with the suits versus the Mac with the jeans? But the point is that they came from private markets. They came from private startup entrepreneurs. And at the time that IBM existed in the 1980s, there was no Microsoft. IBM could have created a software monopoly. They didn't. Microsoft in the 90s became basically the biggest software company in the world and failed to create Google. Microsoft tried to create search. They failed. Why can't they do it? I know why, and millions of people know why. It's because big companies can't innovate. You get to the certain point, you become bloated, and you just think about protecting your market share, and you become like a monopoly, and you're just suing people over copyright infringement, and you're not really going back to the core of how it started, and you can never. That's why a lot of founders, they'll just grow the company to a point and start something else. Then you have the last thing, which is Facebook, which Google could have created, social media. Google failed to recognize the need for social media and failed to recognize the trend that enabled Facebook to become the largest social media company in the world. And so on and so on. You can go from Facebook, you can go on to other things. Why did the taxi industry fail to identify Uber and create their own Uber and allowed Uber to exist? So venture capital has the tendency to be able to identify a niche for the market, exploit it, and grow. And AI is going to empower that, and it's going to grow and attract more of that traditional mainstream economy to the startup ecosphere, because people are going to be able to launch idea to product very quickly. So that's just going to accelerate. The other thing is, you're not going to need so much funding. So the other thing that's happening is there's a traditional model where you have a deck, you get investors, and that's probably always going to exist in some form. But now there's a new thing. A guy created, it's called OpenClaw. It's amazing. It's a real good AI. He created it from nothing. I mean, he was a successful software entrepreneur, so he knew what he was doing. His name is Peter. He's Austrian, and he created this OpenClaw and basically was hired by ChatGPT for $1 billion. I mean, the point is, he created OpenClaw like an open source project, but he created all this value without going through the process of, he just built it. He didn't go knock on doors of investors and have a deck. So it's changing the whole ecosphere from the ground up. That includes how you target customers, how you identify customers, how you scale your business, how you get funding, what you really need funding for. I mean, the other thing is, if you don't really need money for software and for development, or you need 90% less, you don't need to raise money from investors. You just really need money for a core team. So if a core team gets together and says, we're going to work for free for 2 years, knock this out, and then we're done, one and done, then you don't need money from investors. So it's going to change the whole fabric of things. And it's exciting because it's going to be a method for technology to be pumped into the consumer society quickly. And you've got to have the profit motive. And the last thing that I'll say is what Elon's done with SpaceX is amazing. But from my perspective, the one really solid thing that he's contributed is creating a business model for startups. And that means he took one thing. He sold out of PayPal. If you compare him to the other PayPal mafia, not to compare individual people, because everyone does something different and they all did different things. But what Elon did successfully is he took the money from PayPal and he started SpaceX. And then he took the money from that, effectively, and he started Tesla. And then he took the money from that and he started Neuralink. Then he took the money from that and he started XAI. Then he bought Twitter, and now he's merging them all into one massive company. So that's a very lean business model. The point is that there's not a lot of people out there that run their companies like that. Mostly it's all about them. It's about creating a personal empire. And he wasn't like that at all. He actually, I mean, he's created wealth for himself, but he's also created thousands of other billionaires who invested with him. And he's created a lot of wealth for his employees. There are SpaceX employees that get 50, 100 million in stock because they do valuable things for the company. But the point here is it's a merit-based, he's created a meritocracy of capitalism. And that's important because you don't, I mean, corruption is unethical, but if we skip the ethical arguments for a moment, corruption is unsustainable. When you live in a nepotistic, corrupt system, everyone's just grabbing what assets there are, and it's a finite grab of assets. When you live in a meritocracy, it's like a win-win, and those founders, I mean those employees that got money, some of them got the money from working at SpaceX and creating value, and then created more value at other companies and partner with SpaceX. So it becomes a snowball effect of positive value creation. And SpaceX is kind of unique, or at least they're kind of an outlier. But I think that he's created a model that other entrepreneurs will follow. And imagine we have 1,000 Elons. I mean, as far as that business model goes, where they have one successful thing and then they parlay it into other things. And I think that's also on the flip side where a lot of entrepreneurs fail. You create this one big thing and then you just sort of get stuck and sunk in defending your monopoly rather than focusing on innovating again and starting over. So I think that's the biggest way that AI can enable people like that to further that business model, which will create value. And ultimately, I think there'll be so much value, it'll just spread out to everyone in ways that we can only imagine. I don't think that money will cease to exist. I think what will happen is there'll be so much wealth, and it'll be distributed, not equally, but it'll be distributed widely, that people will work because they want to work, or they will have a business because they want to travel to Mars, or build a resort casino, or I just read there's some wood in China that costs millions of dollars for one tree because it looks golden and it is completely can last forever because it doesn't, I mean, for thousands of years, because it can't get wet and there's no bugs can get inside, and there's all kinds of things that can be luxuries that you work for. So, and I think venture capital is really going to be the growth engine that makes all that happen. So that's all. That's this topic, and I'm going to put some free tools in the link, some free tools linked in the description that you can get started, some DIY stuff if you want to get involved in doing that. And it's amazing what you can build just in the last few months, how things have accelerated. Thank you. Have a great day.